I mentioned before that the titles for Mary. So the first one is Our Lady of Sorrows. Okay, Our Lady of Sorrows. I'm sure that you guys can come up with your own explanation of Our Lady of Sorrows, but obviously she's in grieving pain, particularly through the passion of our Lord, right? The second one is Our Lady of Consolation. There's actually a basilica in Ohio that's named after Our Lady of Consolation. So we look into the consolation of our Blessed Mother, her ability to give us that consolation when we're going through any type of struggle. And then thirdly, our very own Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Her perpetual help through all these events I'm going to tell you about is paramount, to put it lightly. So let's start with the first one. The first event, we have to rewind all the way to the summer before my senior year of high school. So this would have been 2005 for any historical people that want to know exact dates. I was a football player, as many of you know, American football for our English football fans, and I was getting ready for our senior year of football. So, it's in the summer, I'm going through workouts, it's very intense stuff. It's a big deal in Ohio. I don't know what it's like here in New York, but it's a big deal in Ohio. And but what I was experiencing were every once in a while some pains in my abdominal area. Okay, so like in that area. So, I went to family doctor at the time and did some evaluation and such, and it was determined, hey, you probably have a stress fracture in your back from lifting, from weightlifting. So I'm like, all right, so I took a little bit of time off that, but it didn't seem to be the answer because it didn't, solve anything. So I kept going along and eventually got to the point where it was a night. It was that night I was getting ready to go to sleep, and I felt the same kind of pain, and it kept building. And it got to the point where I couldn't sleep for one thing, and then secondly, I got to the point where I couldn't even stand. Like, it was so intense, so excruciating that I literally couldn't stand. So long story short, my parents, and I had the strength to actually call out for my parents, because if I didn't do that, who knows what could have happened. But my mom's a registered nurse, so that, may have helped. But they rushed me to the ER, and long story short, it was determined that I had, and I'm not trying to gross you guys out before dinner, but I had intestine that was perforated, okay? And what that basically means is that it was kind of like an explosion in some ways. And also the ability for digestion to pass through the intestines was it was like almost like the intestine was swelling shut. So it was sort of like maybe even like a heart attack, where your arteries are clogged or something. So anyway, that's what they determined, and so because of that, the only way to repair the situation was to go in and surgically remove any of this infected intestine, okay? I can't remember how much it was that was removed. I can tell you that it was at least feet, okay? Believe it or not, you have like 20 some feet of intestine in your bodies. I happen to have a percentage less than that. But anyway, so I don't want to go on and on, but so the whole point of this is that not only was it, a somewhat serious medical condition to go through, but it also was my first experience of real adversity, and also, this isn't the most important thing, but I wasn't able to play my senior year of football. It wasn't the central of my thought, but it certainly played a factor. And actually, it may have impacted my parents more than me. Because I think for sure, I was kind of, I was on a lot of morphine, so I wasn't really with it. But I'm pretty sure that my parents were crying when they were informed that I, wouldn't be recovered in time because this was July and the season would start in August, so. Anyway, so the whole point of this is, and I've identified that Our Lady of Consolation to kind of refer to this situation is, I needed a lot of consolation because it wasn't easy to go through this, at 18 years old. So that was a big event. One of the big events I've identified as something important for me And so I think, when we're thinking about, I don't know if you guys are going through similar struggles, but certainly we can call on Our Lady of Consolation to give us the consolation of the Holy Spirit as we're going through these tough situations. At the time, I was not living a Catholic life. I wouldn't say I was anti-Catholic, but I wasn't really into the faith, so I didn't really recognize this at the time. But this is me sort of looking at it after the fact, right? So that's the first event. The second event, and these next two are a little bit more, probably a little bit more significant as far as what I had to go through. The second event is March 2nd, 2007. There was a friend of mine that we knew each other since kindergarten. So we're looking at probably 14 years or so. And he had gone on to play college baseball at a local university in Ohio. And a lot of teams do this. They were traveling down to Florida to play some games during the spring when it's still cold in the north. So I don't, maybe you guys heard about this story because it kind of made national news, but on this particular date, March 2nd, 2007, they were traveling to Georgia, and Atlanta, Georgia, to be honest with you. And what happened was it was early in the morning, they had switched drivers, and Dominic may be able to confirm this, but I think the way it was explained is Atlanta highways are kind of weird with their exits, where the exit actually is in the middle of the highway, and you go up. So anyway, there's not really any identification as to what the real cause was, but the story is that the charter bus they were traveling on, went up onto one of these exits thinking it was still the highway, and wrecked on the bridge and fell over the bridge onto the highway below. So, many injuries and 7 deaths. One of the 7 deaths was this friend of mine. So, this is now almost 8 years ago. So I'm okay with it now. At the time, I'll be honest, I cried, man. It was tough. You're sitting there at 19, 20 years old, and you got to lay one of your best friends to his final resting place. Not an easy thing to go through. It really brought a lot of our community together, especially us that were fellow graduates with him and fellow friends with him. So it was good in the sense that we had that, but certainly and our families are close too. They're even close today. There's a lot of interaction between my mom and his mom. A lot of connection there. And I've identified Our Lady of Sorrows as the one to play a role in this situation. We think of her sorrow going through her son's passion, and certainly there was a lot of sorrow when I was going through dealing with a good friend of mine and his tragic death. And of course, my heart goes out to all the other people that died and also were injured in the crash. So that's the second event. The third event is probably the toughest one for me because it was, I'll just explain it. I'll probably explain why. So this would have been the summer of 2008, and I was working for a car rental agency. So a small operation. It's actually an extension of auto repair private business. And anyway, they had vehicles that they would rent out to people, kind of like a Hertz or an Enterprise or one of those kind of companies, but on a very small local level. But they had 2 or 3 stores throughout the area. So I was working for them in the summer, doing detailing and cleaning the cars and having them ready for all of the clients. And so there was, and also what I should say is that this time, again, not living any Catholic faith by any means, but also was not very prudent with my time, where I would do workouts, which aren't a bad thing, but I would do them late at night and get up really early. So my amount of sleep was maybe 3 hours, 4 hours. It was just not a good recipe for success. And so, anyway, it was one of these days in late July, and I was really tired working, and was asked to deliver a car to another store, and accepted. He was like, I'll just throw on the radio, ESPN radio, not a big deal, I'll be fine. And anyway, so what happened was I was taking a minivan to exchange with another store, and the short of the story is that I fell asleep enough at the wheel to cause an accident. And what happened is I was driving along, I saw a red pickup in front of me. I thought it was probably like 50 yards in front of me. And then the next thing I remember is I'm waking up with airbag in my face. And a rather tragic accident. Tragic enough to where one person died in the accident. And I actually watched the person die with my own two eyes. not something I recommend for any people to experience. So, long story short, went through the whole process. I was not injured. The only injured I was injured, but the only injury that I had was cuts on my fingers from the airbag. I don't remember doing it, but it must have been a natural reaction where I went like this and it cut my finger. That's the only injury I had. That's a blessing within itself. This was, I don't know what my speed was. It was a 45-mile-an-hour highway, so I'm guessing at least 45. But it's all a blur, and there's not really any way for anybody to detect how fast I was going. But what I also should say is I rear-ended the truck, and this is where it gets a little more gruesome. So I apologize if somebody can't handle this, but I rear-ended the truck, and it pushed it in. It's a 2-lane highway. I pushed it into the oncoming lane, and a semi, of all things, was the thing that wrecked into the truck, the pickup truck, right? And I didn't see it, but records indicate that it almost did a monster truck over the pickup. It went up and over, and that played into the result of this gentleman that was driving and his death. So the short of it is that naturally it was a very surreal moment to know that I just watched someone die, and it's in part because of me. It wasn't deliberate, but it was also, you can't deny the fact that, I played a role in it, So, from a law standpoint, I was charged as a criminal offense. Thanks to the lawyer that I had, at least I'm going to assume that it was thanks to him, there was mercy shown, because I think it was 6 months of jail time. I was suspended, and replacement for probation. I'm actually off the probation now. That was cut short because of good reports and good behavior and stuff. And but also, my driver's license was suspended for 10 years. So remember, this is 2008. So I'm still under the suspension. Now, the good thing is after 1 calendar year, I was able to apply for privileges to drive for certain things. And I got to tell you, they've been very generous with allowing me to drive for Redemptorist activities, for example, and many other things that are, it's like, I tell people it's like a litany of things that I can drive for. And I had a good relationship with the probation officer. He actually gave me, he said, we can't reinstate the license at least until the sentence is fulfilled, or, if there's some sort of a court action where we file, an appeal or whatever you might call it, to, I guess it'd be more of a petition the court, which we did once, but it didn't go through, and I didn't really expect it to go through, And to be honest with you, I'm okay with just going through the whole thing. Let's just go through the 10 years, get it over with, move on. We're already 6 years in, so. But anyway, so I have the privileges, so don't feel like I'm driving illegally or something. I'm very. Brian can attest to this. I'm very careful with, making sure that what I am driving for is something I have the law on my side to do so. So, there were some other things, some court fees and stuff like that. But the whole point of this whole situation is naturally I needed a lot of perpetual help in that situation. Not only in the context of dealing with it, but also just being able to handle it from a it was recommended for me to see traumatic help. Kind of like your military people that are recommended for post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, it wasn't diagnosed or anything, but it was recommended if I was struggling to seek help. By the grace of God, I never had any. I mean, I'd tell people I was ready to drive the next day, you know, because I felt it was so much of a. I mean, I just fell asleep at the wheel. You know, it's not like I was a horrible driver or anything. I mean, anybody's going to struggle to drive when they're asleep, you know. So, anyway, so it got all settled, at least as far as, you know, everything was just, you know, playing out and everything. And, you know, this was, again, 6 years ago, so I'm doing okay with it now. And it's, you know, but it also provides an opportunity for me to always keep this gentleman that died in my prayers, you know, and in my thoughts, because, I mean, it played a role, certainly, in what I had to go through. So, and I can tell you a little bit more about it if you guys are interested in, you know, more details and stuff, but just for the sake of our time, I won't keep going. But, so these are 3 events that I've identified as very significant for my life, you know, and again, Our Lady of Consolation, Our Lady of Sorrows, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. All 3 play a role in all these events, but specifically the ones identified. Consolation for my own surgery in high school, sorrows for my friend that passed away in the tragic accident, and perpetual help for my own tragic accident, auto accident. So, also, one of the other things going on, I kind of hinted at this before, is I would be lying if I said I was living a moral life during all of this. I didn't know it then, but I do now. But I struggle with things. And, you know, so, yeah, I struggled with lust. I struggled with masturbation. I struggled with pornography. I did those things. But it also plays a role into me now, knowing that these are serious things, fellas. These are serious things. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not a fan when we joke around about those things. They're serious things, fellas. That's all I'm going to say about that. But also, profanity, inappropriate language, so having like sexual references that are inappropriate, stuff like that. When I was in college, believe it or not, I was binge drinking. Not every night, but it happened quite a bit. It didn't get as worse as it could be, you know, but it was certainly not a good thing. It's I mean, it's not a good thing to be intoxicated. I mean, you can have a beer or two, but if you're getting to the point where you're drunk, you've gone too far. So, but all that said, here's the good news, and I intend that pun. The good news is that in the winter of 2009, 2010, I actually was not faithful to the Sunday Mass, among other things. And my excuse was, well, maybe I can listen to it on the radio. And although it's possible that you can do that in some capacities, I was not successful. But what I ended up doing was listening to an audio homily, not from the Redemptorist, unfortunately, but from the pastor of the campus ministry parish that I would eventually work for. And his homily, believe it or not, was how important it was to be faithful to the Sunday Mass. So naturally that impacted me quite a bit, because that's one of the big things I was not doing, was going to the Sunday Mass. So it was a snowball effect. By the grace of God, I was able to respond generously, and eventually started going to the Sunday Mass more regularly. Then I went to the student group on campus. So this would be similar to the St. John's, but they have like their student groups, you know, their student Catholic community. They meet like maybe once a week or once a month or whatever their schedule is. It was actually a courageous effort too, because I was going to go with a friend of mine, but he backed out. And so I went alone. And I don't know about you guys, it's not easy to go to something alone when you don't know anybody. Or maybe you know one person, but not really that well, you know. So by God's grace, I was able to do that. And then I went on this powerful retreat called Koinonia. It's a Greek word meaning community. That our campus ministry in Ohio does twice a year. And that's really where I had probably, from a sacramental standpoint, a big experience where, you know, I went to confession probably for the first time since my first confession. I honestly don't think I went to confession from the first confession, like that you get, you know, as part of religious education, all the way until, you know, whatever, I guess this had been like February of 2010. That's a long time. But it was a great experience, dumped a lot out, and received the forgiveness that God gives us. So that led to my experience of God's mercy, my first real experience of Catholic life. From then on, I've come a long way. Sexual temptation is always a part of life, but I feel like I'm pretty strong against that stuff, and I owe it all to Our Lady's prayers and the grace of God. Also, I've been able to develop phenomenal friends and friendships and mentors. Working experience in campus ministry, both as a student and as an employee for the parish and Newman Center, and also experience in Catholic radio. That still is a big experience and still something I try to be a part of. And also, of course, because I'm standing right here, discernment and formation with the Redemptorist. I thought to myself, if you were around like 5 years ago and told me I'd be standing here right now, I'd be like, are you sure? Because religious life was not, I started serving priesthood first, and then religious life came after that. I thought it was too radical. But because I'm here today, I don't think the same anymore. But anyway, so that's a little bit about that. As I said from the top, Our Blessed Lady, by her intercession with the Most Holy Redeemer, did not give up on me, and by her prayers bestowed on me the grace in order for me to respond generously then, and of course now, because we need the grace every second of our lives. And also, I was able to receive plentiful redemption from Christ Jesus then and now. And that phrase, plentiful redemption, as you can see, that's played a big role in a lot of what I've gone through, is being able to experience this plentiful redemption that we talk about, for professed redemptorists and those that are aspiring towards that. And so naturally, it was very powerful for me to go through and experience this plentiful redemption and know that the Redemptorists, that's the central part of their mission, is to bring that to people. And what better way for me to take what I've experienced, maybe not directly, but at least I can relate to someone that may be going through the same things and be able to bring that to them.